Your book is a perfectly timed book talking about how so many people, both on the loyal opposition side and the media, are doing everything they can to upend the presidency of Donald Trump. Let's start with the question, why?
Well, one of the points I make in the book is that for 3 years you've had this narrative that it is Donald Trump who is destroying institutions, destroying the country. But if you look back at the election, what you had was a group of people, both in the Democratic Party and in the media, who didn't just decide they didn't like this president, they decided he was somehow illegitimate, that he somehow was occupying an office he didn't deserve, and that they were therefore entitled to take any steps they wanted to get rid of him. And that's what I call Trump hatred, and it's what drives this.
You talked about in the book that it's not just a matter of saying that his politics or policies are wrong. It's been a personal attack, calling him a racist, calling him a xenophobe, using all sorts of really derogatory terms. That's really different than anything we've ever seen in terms of attacking a political opponent so consistently.
Oh, absolutely. Look, you've been doing this a long time. I have. What normally happens when a party loses an election is that they step back, they do an autopsy, they just lick their wounds, and then they figure out how to come back and do better next time. This time they decided that they were instead going to impugn Donald Trump's victory, impugn him as a man. And so they're normalizing these incredibly aggressive terms, as you said, and that has been very, I think, frightening for the country because it's not true, but also it's coarsening our discourse.
This week, Kimberly, we're also seeing the launch of this whole impeachment process now going on in the Senate after we spent weeks watching into the House. How dangerous do you think it is to make this the new norm, where if you just didn't win the election and you don't like the president, let's just get rid of him and let's upend the votes of all those people who in fact did elect that individual?
Yeah, there's been a lot of things that they have done that has upended norms, hurt institutions, from the Brett Kavanaugh hearings to the Russia collusion and Mueller investigation. This is arguably, as you say, the most damaging because what it's doing is it's cheapening impeachment. And look at the very articles of impeachment they've brought. There is no crime mentioned. Instead, they are accusing Donald Trump of abuse of power. Well, I can tell you there are plenty of Republicans who could look at every past Democratic president and claim they abused their power. And if this is a standard we're going to set going forward, every time you have a president of one party in the Oval Office and a party other than that in the House of Representatives, the first thing that's going to happen is impeachment. And that is terrible for our country.
Are you concerned too, Kimberly, about how biased the media has appeared to be? They give President Trump no credit whatsoever for anything that he does successfully, whether it's USMCA, the China deal, the taking down of Soleimani. And you would think that this is a person who has failed every single day he's walked into the Oval Office. As a journalist, does it embarrass you or frighten you that there is no objective coverage to speak of?
It discourages me. It's funny, Mike, I put the chapter about the media as the very last in my book, and it's my one regret. I now wish I had made it the first one, because I have become convinced that if the media had been doing its job, we wouldn't have even had any of this happen over the last 3 years, because we depend on the media to be guardrails and to call fairly balls and strikes. And when they don't do that, they allow one party to continue breaking the rules and pushing out those outer boundaries. If the media had done its job, we would never have had the Russia collusion hoax. We wouldn't have had special counsel Bob Mueller, and we wouldn't be having impeachment right now. And so a lot of this does rest directly at its feet.
You talked about the Mueller investigation in the book. There was a chapter devoted to it. That turned out to be a great big flop. There just wasn't anything there, and the Democrats had built their hopes on it. But that just didn't end. It just kept leading on to other controversies. How surprised were you that the Mueller investigation, with all those lawyers and all the $35 million, really came out with nothing?
Well, I think for those of us who were trying to be honest and report honestly about this, for the 2.5 years that it went on, it wasn't much of a surprise because look, the entire or most of the foundation of it was based on an opposition research document sourced from a foreign country, Russia, paid for by the Hillary Clinton campaign, none of which had ever been proven true. So when that was the final analysis, it didn't surprise us. What did surprise me was just how hard Bob Mueller worked to try to get someone on these grounds. And they go through the chapter and verse, all the statutes they looked at to see if they could get someone. In the end, they couldn't. That to me is even more of a victory in a way for the Trump administration, is that folks were clearly out to get them, and they were actually so squeaky clean they couldn't find anything.
Well, Kimberley, I hope people will get your book. It's Resistance at All Cost, How Trump Haters Are Breaking America. It is a great and very timely book for people to understand not so much what they see, but what they don't see behind the scenes. And I think you've done all of us a great service by giving us that background. The book is available on Amazon as well as all your favorite booksellers. Be sure and watch for Kimberley Strassel's articles and her column, Potomac Watch, in the Wall Street Journal. Follow her on Twitter at Kim Strassel.